In today's video, I'll be telling you 10 reasons why you shouldn't consider becoming a pilot. In my previous video, I talked about 10 reasons why you should consider becoming one, and I'll put the link here above and also in the description, so go and watch the video out. I hope that after watching both these videos, it'll help you decide whether becoming a pilot is for you or not. So if you guys are ready, fasten those seatbelts because we're ready for takeoff. What's up elevators, and welcome back to the FlyTuber, Flying Simplified through YouTube. My name is Ali Asghar, and on this channel I talk about interesting aviation facts and aircraft knowledge. So if you are an aviation enthusiast and are interested to know more about aircrafts and flying, consider subscribing. Although, like I explained in my previous video, being a pilot is a very glamorous job, but it also has many downsides to it. So let's jump straight to the points. Number 10. Highly stressful job. If you Google the most stressful jobs, airline pilot is gonna be of the top few. Now, being an airline pilot is highly stressful because there is a huge workload and a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder. As a pilot, you have to look after the fuel figures, how much fuel do you require to continue to the destination, and also including the diversion planning. You also have to make sure that the cargo, passengers and fuel has been loaded in a well-balanced manner and that the aircraft weights are under limits. You also have to consider the weather en route, that it is safe for you to continue with the flight. And most importantly, you are also responsible for the safety of the aircraft and the passengers and have to take immediate action in case an emergency situation arises. Not to forget that you might have a lot of personal problems and stresses apart from work, which you need to keep outside your head and outside the cockpit before operating the flight, because you have to perform at your peak always, which is very difficult. It is very difficult if something is bothering in your head to perform and concentrate on one thing, and all of this builds a lot of stress. Number 9. Study and exams throughout your life. While in most cases you just study and give exams until you land a job, and once you start working you don't give exams etc. And you just pretty much work. But being a pilot is different because firstly you are evaluated twice a year at least for your emergency handling skills, for which you have to study and do preparation. And apart from that, you also have annual refresher courses to refresh your theory knowledge. And if that wasn't enough, if there is a certain upgrade from the manufacturer, for example in the aircraft systems, or any changes, you also have to study about that. And not to forget, if you yourself are going through an upgrade, for example if you want to become a captain, you have to study and do preparation and put in your hard work in that as well. So if you were thinking that being a pilot is just all fun and games and no studies and exams, well, there you have it my friend, you have to be prepared for these things. Point number 8. Away from family and friends. Remember about those amazing lures I talked about in my previous video? While I put it in an interesting way over there, and it actually also is, but on the flip side, you'll be spending a lot of time away from your family and friends, especially if you're flying internationally and long haul flights, because in those cases you won't be returning home for 4 days or even up to a week. While if you still are a single and a bachelor, this point might not actually bother you, and in fact you might enjoy this one. But if you're married and have a family and have personal life and responsibilities, it might be difficult for you because you will be away from home for most of the time. This brings me to the point number 7, which is missing out on a lot of social events. A pilot schedule is not at all favorable with being social in most of the times. Like I mentioned above, if you're flying internationally, then you are pretty much away from your home at least 4 days a week, which is a lot of time away from home, and because of that, you'll be missing out on many social events, weddings and family functions, for example. And even if you're flying for a regional or a domestic airline, you still will miss out on many social events because your schedule is generally jam-packed with 6 flights a week. Now, if you were to compare that to a 9 to 5 office job, well, the difference here is that flights are around the clock. You also have many flights at night when most of the functions take place. And even if your departure was early morning departure, still you have to be well rested before the flight, and when the function is happening, you might be resting at that time. So if you want to be a pilot, be prepared to miss many such events, because you will either be resting or working, or you'll be sitting in a hotel room away from your home while your friends and family will be partying. Number 6. A lot of risk involved. While the big jet airliners are very safe thanks to the redundant and backup systems fitted to the aircraft, you can watch the video on redundancy up here, but the smaller aircrafts impose a higher risk and threat to your life, because these aircrafts are fitted with fewer backups or no backups in most cases, and for the most part of your training you'll be flying a single engine aircraft, and if that only engine fails, you are in deep trouble. Also, the effect of wind speed, turbulence, rain, cloud, lightning, etc. is far more severe on these smaller aircrafts. Side note, many people overlook the quality of maintenance department and how the aircrafts are maintained when they search for a flight school. So I recommend you that before joining a flight school, do research on that, because after all, it's a matter of your precious life. Number 5, standby duty. Many pilots are scheduled as standby or backup replacement in case one of the pilots has to cancel out at the last moment. For example, if he gets sick or if he has some other family or personal emergency that arises without notice. Now, if you are on standby, you need to be within an hour's drive away from the airport so that the passengers aren't kept waiting and to avoid delays. Now, if you weren't pulled out for a flight on a standby day, your day is pretty much waste because you didn't even fly, and neither could you do any other thing because you need to be in your home and 1 hour away from the airport. Number 4, chaotic schedule. While in a regular office job, you know that you'll be working 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, but a pilot schedule is very different and very inconsistent. You'll be flying all over the day. Sometimes you're flying the day, sometimes you're flying in the morning, and sometimes you have to do red-eye flight, which is you have to fly throughout the night. Your sleep schedule will be disturbed a lot. For example, if you have just flown throughout the night, in the morning you'll be sleepy and you'll go to bed. Once you wake up in the evening, it's time for you to sleep again because you have an early morning departure for which you need to be rested. But the problem is you won't be able to sleep because 1, you are rested, and 2, you were awake last night. So how will you sleep today? Above example is for a regional airline, but if you're flying internationally, still you'll be crossing many time zones which will cause a lot of jet lag. And in a 48-hour or 3-day layover, once your body is just about coped up with the new time zone, it's time for you to fly back home, and by the time you're back home, your biological clock is in a total mess and all over the place. All of this can cause a lot of sleep deprivation or irritated mood, or in sometimes even some health issues. So if you are a person who doesn't like waking up way early in the morning or are uncomfortable in constantly changing your sleeping patterns, for example, then unfortunately this field might not be for you. Number 3, training cost. Flying training is really expensive, no doubt about that, and this is one of the biggest hurdles that comes in way of many aspirants out there. But why is flying training so costly? There are a lot of costs involved in a training flight, from fuel to aircraft rental, aircraft maintenance, instructor fees, etc., which all add up to about 35 to 40 lakh rupees of training cost in today's date. And this is just the cost that you spend for your flying license alone, where you've learned to fly smaller aircrafts. Now when you learn to fly the bigger jet aircrafts, you spend another about 15 to 20 lakh rupees. And if you were to join a cadet pilot program of an airline, it will cost you about 1 crore rupees at least at today's date. Most people don't have this much money, and even if they were to turn their heads towards loans, it requires collateral which needs to be at least twice or thrice in value of what money you are taking. And after all this comes with a lot of interest, and the total amount which you repay becomes very high. Although this is a big downside of becoming a pilot, but I think that if you have that zeal and passion to become a pilot, this point won't bother you because you will find some way or the other around. The same case was with me. I had to arrange funds for flying training somehow. Point number 2, medicals. Pilots need to keep fit all the time because if something happens to them, the lives of 180 passengers behind them is at risk, and no airlines would risk that. Now, if you're someone who struggles with obesity or your immune system is weak and you keep ill most of the times, chances are that you might fail your medicals. And even if you are fit, one small mishap or an accident, God forbid, would cost you your medical and in turn your license, and no matter how many years and thousands of hours of experience you have in the flight deck, you won't be able to fly. Now consider the amount of money and hard work you put in to become a pilot. All of that will vanish just in the spur of a moment. Moving on to the top reason why you shouldn't consider becoming a pilot is no job guarantee. A lot of my dear pilot friends would agree with this point, and who else would understand it better than the unemployed pilots who have just completed their training. There is no guarantee that you will land a job after finishing your training, because if there is no requirement, the airlines won't come up with any vacancies, and if you aren't given the chance to play, how will you even score? Even if you have a job, it is always at a risk because airline is a very lucrative business and gets hit very quickly because of any global events. For example, we have witnessed this recently because of this global coronavirus pandemic. Many airlines had to lay off many of its pilots just so that the airline stays alive. I know that there is no job guarantee in other fields as well, but after spending a heap of money and especially being under a lot of loans with interest, you can't really afford not having a job at all. But I strongly believe that with a lot of hard work, perseverance, and most importantly, a lot of patience, You can become a pilot for an airline one day, you just have to hang in there. So those were the top 10 reasons why you shouldn't consider becoming a pilot. But like I said, if you have that zeal and that passion deep down in your heart, you will always find a workaround, and there are many points which won't even bother you. Question of the day: which one of the above reasons do you think is the worst part of being a pilot? Do comment in the section below. Well, that's it for this video, guys. I hope that you guys got information and value out of this video, and most importantly, you will now be able to decide for yourselves that being a pilot is for you or not. That's it from my side. I'll see you in the next and very interesting topic. Until then, happy landings.